Good morning everyone, my name is Ruth King and I'm the Marketing and Event Coordinator here at Hornbill. I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar where we'll be having a presentation on simplifying the challenges of modern ITSM with Abdi Hamisi, Sales Manager, and Steve Boardman, Product Manager here at Hornbill. Just to inform you, delegate audio will be muted during the presentation to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the GoToMeeting questions facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We will collate questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you for taking the time to attend. I will now pass you over to Abdi and Steve.
Brilliant, thanks Ruth. Welcome everyone, and we're going to take you through over the next 45 minutes or so a quick presentation of Hornbill Service Manager. But just before we jump into the actual solution itself, we thought we'd just have a look at some of the challenges, as Ruth has addressed there, around supporting or simplifying modern ITSM. So let's take a few minutes to have a look at this, and then we'll hand over to Steve, who's going to take you through the demo. So in the context of today's demo, and also in the context of presenting the challenges, we wanted to introduce these couple of personas. We've got the service desk manager and the analyst, and the reason we're focusing on these two personas is typically these are the main people that we end up engaging with when we're out talking to you as prospects and customers, the types of people that end up using the service management tool to support their organisation. So in the context of the challenges that we're talking about today, it's really pointed at these two areas. Obviously there's other personas and roles involved in any service management decision and function, going from the CIO down, but in effect these are the two main areas we want to focus on today. So some of the key challenges that we've boiled down over the years. I mean, Hornbill's in existence 20 years this year, and we've obviously been involved in many thousands of service desk projects, and these are some of the key challenges that we've seen and experienced and boiled down from speaking to customers and working with organisations over that time. Number one challenge we see these days is around upgrades. It's one of the main reasons that people are out there looking to replace their service desk. They've got to a point where making an upgrade is as good as a chance to start again, because the upgrade is that complicated. So again, one reason why we find ourselves talking to customers. Cost of ownership in this day and age, cost of anything is sensitive. So anywhere that you can save money, reduce overall cost is going to be key, and that's a challenge that we all face. Complexity. Service management tools by definition need to be complex because of the wide-ranging scope that we need to address, but again that isn't an excuse for the tool being overly complex, and again that's often a reason cited why people are looking to replace their tool. Equally, usability. We've become accustomed in our consumer lives to very slick and efficient tools, and sometimes that kind of doesn't transfer into the workplaces as well as it should do, and that's another reason why we find ourselves talking to people about a new solution. And the last one here is customizations. A, they're either very complicated or expensive, or B, they're the reason why you can't do an upgrade, and back to the point we started with. So these are the kind of areas that we're going to talk about and discuss in a little bit of depth around these two personas, and then we'll jump in and have a look at how Hornbill can help you address some of those specific challenges today. So let's meet Sonia. Sonia, as we said, is our service delivery or service desk manager. So she has a specific set of challenges relating back to those points I mentioned a moment ago. We talked briefly about upgrades, but just to spend a bit of time here on this, upgrades can be expensive and time-consuming. I'll probably change that to are expensive and time-consuming in respect to the fact that they have to be undertaken either annually or biannually, depending on which vendor you're working with, in order to keep up to date with the releases from that vendor. Often requires you to run a project of some description internally. It typically sometimes requires external help from the vendor. So again, all of these things add up to cost and time that you can ill afford to give up, and often at the cost of more productive initiatives for your organisation. So anything that can be done to eliminate or remove this challenge or this overhead is going to be beneficial and work for you going forwards. Customizations, again, I mentioned it a moment ago, but one of the things that we hear often is that the fact that customizations have to be re-implemented. So by definition, what we're saying here is you tailor the solution by making a customization. You then come to do your upgrade, but as a result, having customized the tool, it becomes more difficult to upgrade, in that you have to perhaps redo that customization or consider not taking it forward. So again, these are real-world issues that we see and we hear that customers present to us, that give them good reason to want to go out and find a solution that resolves that. high levels of skills and expertise are often required to maintain service management tools. And again, that's not unique to service management. In fact, any of these challenges are pretty much standard across any software tool set. But in the service management space, it's not uncommon to have to retain fairly expensive overheads internally in order to maintain and to develop your solution in keeping with your company's needs. And so again, this is a cost consideration, talking about cost of ownership. This one's probably the most popular issue that we hear is around generating meaningful management reporting. And by meaningful, I mean easy to generate management reporting that does make the process of making decisions easier. So, if you're one of those people that find yourselves on a Sunday evening giving up your weekend to generate reports for your management team, then this is certainly something that's going to hold true to you. But the ability to generate reports quickly, easily and efficiently is certainly something that is often raised. And again, we touched on it earlier on, the idea that in today's day and age, with cost pressures and budgets being what they are, the need to drive up productivity, but to do that with less budget and funding is obviously an ever-present challenge to organisations. From an analyst perspective, we've got Graham, and Graham's challenges, whilst there are some parallels with what we've talked about for Sonia, they're perhaps a little bit more granular in respect to the user, the day-to-day user in terms of an analyst. How usable the tool is a really important factor, because you're probably going to spend a lot of your day actually working in this tool. And we often hear this sort of phrase along the sort of lines of the tool does lots of stuff, but it's not that easy to use. It's not intuitive. There's obviously a reasonable amount of time to get up to speed with actually using a given tool. So, again, this comes back to our expectations we have as consumers outside of work. We find that tools are easy to use, they're easy to install, they're easy to figure out. There's no complexity, but the tools we use inside of work are often quite the opposite. Being able to work from anywhere, again, drawing back on that parallel with the consumer life, on my mobile I can do a lot of things. I can do my banking, my shopping, and all of the other stuff in between. And the challenge I have when I come to work is none of the apps I use at work, or very few of the apps I use at work, potentially give me that capability. So again, the ability to do your service management tasks from wherever you are on any device, any time is a big draw for any user that's having to pick up tickets and manage those through their life cycle. Again, this is probably the person that has to maintain that high degree of technical knowledge, but it's not just simply having knowledge, but it's the breadth of knowledge that's required in order to maintain a locally installed service management solution. You have to know the infrastructure, you have to know the integration points, you have to know your data sources, as well as then obviously having good understanding of the product and maintaining that product knowledge to keep the solution in best shape. And then I think this is one that we've picked on as an organisation and really tried to figure a solution to. Is one of our observations over the years is that whilst you've got a very functional service desk tool, a lot of the work that gets done around finding the answers or engaging with experts or colleagues in order to actually resolve the tickets that you've got logged in your service desk tool, all of that communication tends to happen outside of the service desk and service desk tool effectively, so through informal collaboration through email or other channels. And so this is a challenge where the knowledge that's being shared, if you like, is being lost to future use, because there's no way of revisiting or reusing that knowledge when it's outside of the service desk tool. So one of the challenges that we've seen over the years is this idea of having to leave where you're doing your work to go and communicate, to then come back and finish doing your job, if you like. So that's something that we've looked to try and address, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the last thing here really is around time spent. So as an analyst, any time I spend actually maintaining and upgrading my traditional service desk solution is time I'm not spending on higher value initiatives or working on tickets or resolving issues or driving the business forward. So this is really a playback on cost of ownership again. So there's a whole bunch of challenges, and I guess what we're looking to cover over the next 45 minutes or so, or during this session, is really to address how Hornbill will help you to counteract a lot of those challenges and to simplify those challenges in delivering service management in today's age. So let's have a look at very quickly what Hornbill offers you. The Hornbill Service Manager solution is delivered on the Hornbill platform, which in itself is a collaboration platform. And the basic premise behind our solution is that we're offering you a collaborative ITSM solution which brings together the best parts of IT service management as we know it, including your complex business processes, and marrying that with modern, innovative collaboration and communication techniques to give you a platform where you can both communicate and do your job in the same place, and in doing so be able to share knowledge and ideas much more readily, collaborate with your teams and your customers, boost productivity, and most importantly being able to work anywhere, as we'll touch on in a moment. Hornbill Service Manager and the Hornbill platform is built in a familiar, social, enabled way, in such that you've got very immediate access to the information that's important to you. It gets pushed to you both through your web client or through your mobile, so you're always up to date with the stuff that matters to you most, and it's easy to pick up. It can be used on any mobile device or tablet device, as well as obviously on your PC or laptop, and can be just from anywhere at any time. But most importantly also in any language. So one of the things we've seen over the years is that the world seems to be getting smaller in terms of where you end up working with people in different geographies, speaking different languages, and that becomes an ever-present challenge when you're trying to support customers or colleagues across those sorts of geographical boundaries. So just to draw breath a second and just to cover on what we're offering here, Hornbill Service Manager is based on a cloud service, and the emphasis being on the word service. So it is a SaaS solution, but we would put it forward as being a second generation SaaS solution, in that it's not simply a piece of software that was originally delivered for on-premise use, hosted and wrapped around with a subscription pricing model. It's a true SaaS solution built in the cloud, only works in the cloud, and one of the main benefits of that is that it's delivered on the basis of continuous deployment. And what that in simple terms means is that each and every feature that gets built is released immediately to you, the customer. You get access to that straight away. There's no stopping to do any upgrades. There's no planning, paying for, executing a project to get an upgrade on your service desk. So in essence, you're always up to date with the latest features. And in very simple terms, there's no more costly or complex upgrades. The upgrades are very much automatic. And as a consequence, you're always up to date with the latest features, so the solution's always new. There's no service disruption. And best of all, any customizations that you make in trying to tailor the solution to the purposes of your business are guaranteed going forwards, regardless of any of the updates we make. So you never have to revisit or repay to do customizations again. And the last one, just before I hand over to Steve here, is the concept of our free implementation. In simple terms, what this means is that as an organization, we don't believe that standing up a service desk, getting it integrated and putting your data in there should cost you anything. It's not that complicated. So as a consequence, we actually offer a free implementation service for our customers, and in doing so we get you up and running on your new Service Manager platform absolutely free of charge, and we'll come back and have a look at a bit more what that means at the end. But before I get into any more detail, let's hand over to Steve, who's going to take you through a quick presentation of the solution.
Great, thanks Abdi. Okay, morning everyone. So what we'll just do here, we'll have a look at Service Manager from a couple of perspectives. Initially we'll have a look at it from Graham, as Abdi's introduced him, from an analyst point of view and their feel for how Service Manager works. And then we'll also have a look at it from our end user, our consumer's perspective via the self-service, and then maybe wrap up and have a look at some of the analytics and metrics that we can get out of Service Manager. So I'm just going to come in here, and the first thing I'll just comment on is Service Manager is cloud-based. It does support single sign-on against your directory services, and I've just logged in here as Graham. When Graham logs in, as Abdi mentioned, the Hornbill platform is collaborative, and we actually have line of business applications that are deployed onto your instance. So on the left-hand side here, we can see that Service Manager is installed alongside a document management application, a customer manager application, and this is all rights and roles based. But when Graham logs in, the first thing he sees is his newsfeed. And this is all really to do with information being pushed to Graham in the context of his role that he's interested in. So this can be a whole multitude of things. It could be updates to requests that he's following. And if we just drill into that particular request, we can see the reason that Graham's getting updates is because he's chosen to follow that particular request. Alongside that though, we're seeing updates about documents that have been shared with Graham, changes that are ongoing or have been reported, problems that have been identified and discussions around those particular problems, as well as questions that have been asked by colleagues in the context of workspaces. Now, we've looked briefly at how updates to requests are promoted to Graham and why he sees them on his newsfeed, but why he's seeing the updates about changes and problems, etc., is based on his membership to particular workspaces. So in this example here, we've got workspaces relating to change and problems and major incidents. And if we open up one of those workspaces, we can see here that it's an open workspace with multiple members. And in this workspace, each member can come in and post information, ask questions, or we can automatically push information to these workspaces using our business process tool, which will in turn promote those information up from their workspace onto their newsfeed, which they'll pick up through the web client or through their native iOS or Android apps. As well as using those workspaces though for notifications and communication, it's a fantastic place where we can come together to share and reuse tacit knowledge. So this is really the sort of the unstructured knowledge that sort of exists in people's head or is discussed traditionally across email or by the coffee machine. It's knowledge that in essence is lost or not reusable in the tool. But by having those conversations actually in a workspace, we can catch that information and reuse it. So in this example here, we've got a first line FAQ workspace. That workspace may be made up of first line, second line, specialists, product specialists or experts, and this is where they can come in and they can ask questions that their customers are suffering from. So this occasion, James has asked a question. Both Pablo and Pierre have provided answers, and they've done so in their local language. And here, working English, I can come in and see what they've contributed. Now that's great because I get a couple of responses, but what's also available is for anyone else that's a member of that workspace to look at the question, look at the answers, and actually validate whether that answer was good and whether it will help James and ultimately help his customer. So that's fantastic. But what it does though is then start to build that knowledge up so that over time, using the global search bar at the top, if I wanted to look for anything that was relating to our VPN software that may have been discussed previously, I can just do a quick search. Here I can see multiple results that have come back and they've all been relevant scored. But I could come here and say, I want to have a look at any things that have been posted in the last 6 months. Maybe that is in line with the latest version we're running. Or I'm interested in what Daniel's got to say because he's our expert in our sort of VPN software. Or I could simply say, show me anything that's TrueSoft related in a particular workspace, which filters my results back down. And again, I can see a question's been asked, answer provided, and validation given by my colleagues and my peers. So that's great from a, if you like, an unstructured tacit knowledge perspective, but we don't forget the need for structured knowledge, and on the platform each of the analysts have access to Document Manager where they can create using our editor, or they can upload documents into Document Manager which they can then share and work on. If we have a look at one of those examples, we've got a change management document here. We can see here also that Harry Hornbill has popped up to let us know about a new feature. Harry does our in-app nano and micro training to let our users know about new features as we release them continuously onto the platform. This document we can see though is up for review. We can see that the document has been shared with our colleagues, and we can share those with our colleagues before publishing those out to libraries and to the wider community. The documents can contain revision histories, so we can work together, we can upload revisions, we can collaborate on the content of each of these documents, because a document shares the same attributes as a request, an asset, or a user on our platform. They're all first-class social objects in their own right, which means they can be followed and they can be collaborated on. So here we can see this document and its history, the revisions. We can tag the document to assist with aiding, with searching, and we can also then, once we're happy, move it into an active state, and at that point we can push this out to other libraries to make that more accessible for our users. We can also help our analysts working with their documents, so rather than being faced with multiple file shares across the network and documents being passed across via email and never knowing which is the latest document, all with very helpful naming conventions, I'm sure, what we can do here is actually use self-organizing collections. So in this context, I can just create a collection which uses the tags, and any documents that contain those tags will automatically appear in my collection, and any documents that are added in the future when those tags are attributed will also automatically find their way into the collection that I'm interested in. So again, it just makes organizing your documents significantly easier. But let's move on from here and have a look at perhaps an area that we're more sort of comfortable or familiar with. So I'm just going to come down now and have a look at some of the features of Service Manager from an analyst point of view. Now Graham has got the rights to work with our assets or our CIs, so he can create types, define attributes, upload documents either through a CSV or on a scheduled import basis. It's entirely up to him. He's also got access to manage the services that we provide, and whether that is desktop support service, which teams support that service, who's subscribed to it, what we can log against it, what forms are used, what category structures are used, introduction to our request catalog, so we can actually offer out the types of requests that users can raise against the services we offer, what assets underpin them, what's the history of requests that have been raised against these services, and also any FAQs or knowledge that we want to publish out to our end users via the self-service portal. And we'll come back to the services in a bit more detail as we go forward. But if we come in here and have a look at our request list, this is really the landing place traditionally for an analyst on here, which is my to-do list, the requests that have been assigned to me or my teams. So if we have a look at this list, it's context sensitive. So in this context, Graham will only see the ticket types he's allowed to work with, and also only the tickets that belong to the teams that he's a member of, or tickets that have been raised against services that his teams support. But looking across here, I can look at it in context of instance, service request problems or changes. If I want to look at all of the ticket types for all of the teams that I belong to, I can make those selections. If I wanted to narrow that down simply to the first line incidents, I can just go in and make those choices as I need. But if we set that back to all request types across all my teams, we can then combine those with quick filters on the left-hand side. So if I wanted to look for anything that was VPN related across my ticket set, I can do so. If I wanted to also look for anything that one of my colleagues, for example Brian, was working on, I can quickly filter here. Or if I'm on the phone to a customer and I want to have a look at their active requests, again I can very quickly and easily get to that information. What we do though, and we absolutely recognise, is as well as having those hard set filters, is giving the ability for each analyst to come in and actually control and govern their own views and their own environment. So to that extent, each analyst can come in and create their own custom views, and they can do so easily using a simple clause builder. So if I go in and have a look at my high priority instance view that I'd set up, this is simply a case of saying I want these conditions to be met, and if I wanted to add some more in, such as show me the high priority instance that's been raised against a particular service, I can come in here and I say actually I'm only interested in the high priority instance against the desktop support service, for argument's sake. So that's great and allows me to have those personal views that are important to me, but it also provides the basis for creating my own charts that I want to promote onto my own personal dashboard. So using for the example of the high priority incidents, that's a fantastic view to work with and a very common one I'm sure, but from a charting or a dashboard perspective, I'm probably interested in seeing which teams are responsible for looking after those high priority incidents, or which individuals in those teams have responsibility for those tickets. Or if I wanted to create another one and have a look at actually which of my customers are impacted by those, I can simply come in, choose a donut chart for example, and then we can just filter that same data by customer, we can preview that, and now I can see who my impacted customers are that are affected by those high priority incidents. So once I've got those views and charts in place, I can switch to them as I need to, but I can also toggle very quickly and easily between my request list view and my personal dashboard. Now it is my personal dashboard, so if I want to move things around, make them smaller, bigger, larger, that's entirely up to me. I can click through onto the whole chart as itself to take me back to the list, or if I want to drill down onto any segment of the data, I can do so from any of those charts. And from here, if I so desired, I could export that data out to CSV for further manipulation, or I can simply access those requests if need be. Off the back of that, I can also then quickly get back to any home view that I may have set up, which may be my personal view or instance that have been assigned to myself. I can set up that home view as I need it, and I can also control which columns of data I'm interested in displaying, the orders, and whether any of those will be sacrificed if I'm working on a smaller res screen. So when we get to this point, it's really looking at how do we get requests raised in Service Manager in the first place. And there's really 3 or 4 different techniques that we can use. The first of those is via email. The second is logging them manually. The third is via self-service. And the fourth would be using our XML-based APIs to allow you to raise tickets from third-party applications. But just to cover off those traditional approaches, if you're encouraging your customers to email into particular mailboxes, then we can act as a client and monitor those mailboxes here, pull those emails through, and either automatically create tickets off the back of the email based on where it's come from or the content of the subject or the body, or we can have them drop into the mailbox and we can view those emails before we decide to promote them up as a new request. Obviously, any updates to existing tickets will automatically be appended to the relevant request based on the reference number in the subject line. But then we can also raise them manually, or we can use it via self-service. And just before we go ahead and raise those, there's really a couple of key tenets that underpin how Service Manager works and the power that sits behind that. So I'm just going to switch quickly to the admin tool and just introduce those to you. So just log in. So in the admin tool here, we're going to first of all choose to configure the Service Manager application that's on our instance, and we're going to look primarily at business processes and progressive capture. Now, business processes are really to do with the fulfillment side, and progressive capture is all to do with that logging experience and some of the challenges we've seen in that area. But if we take business processes initially, here we can see that we do ship with default out-of-the-box ITIL aligned processes, but you've also got the ability to come in and create and define your own as needed. If we have a quick look at the desktop support instant process here, the key thing to take away here is that it's not prescriptive. We don't dictate how you should work with Service Manager. We don't dictate, for example, that you have to use service level timers, or that you want to use a fix and a response timer, or when they should start, or what constitutes them being achieved, or that you should send email confirmations at particular points. All of that can be configured into your business processes. And in this example here, that we can see that this desktop support process has actually got 3 different stages, and inside each of those stages we've got options to send emails, to route automatically, to use round-robin assignment, to have manual tasks, to have automated tasks, to start and stop timers, to put checkpoints, to update the statuses, and various other actions that we might want to define. Alongside the incident process, we might also have things like change management, where we've got multiple stages and we're introducing concepts of back-out plans and impact assessments and authorizations, and the concept of tasks or authorizations expiring after a period of time if decisions aren't given. Where do they go, looping back around, etc. All of that can be built in here, as can the concept of parallel processing, if you will. But as you can see here, there's lots and lots of different examples of the fulfillment processes you're going to use to support the request types that you're creating. But if we come back out, there's also the other challenge that we've looked to address here, which is in a lot of the traditional tools, a lot of the feedback we get is that the logging forms are very, very difficult. There's lots of fields on there, like spreadsheet on steroids is some of the feedback that we've heard here. Whereas if anybody books a holiday online or buys insurance online, it's very intuitive, very progressive in the way that it guides you through the questions that you need to answer, and based on your answers it will obviously take you through the appropriate route. So if you have, for example, gone to a Go Compare or Compare the Market websites and you've gone to buy insurance, the first question you get asked is, what type of insurance are you looking for? Is it car, is it home, or is it life? If it's car insurance, it might prompt you for the registration number, and then it might ask if you want fully comprehensive or third-party fire and theft. All we're doing here with progressive capture is actually having exactly that same idea, where you can come in through a simple drag and drop canvas environment. It's build those questions and build that branching of those decisions, and then we'll show the presentation of this when we log the request. So all on here, all we're doing is asking who we're speaking to. If they're raising a desktop support issue and it's going to be an incident, maybe we're going to ask for the category, the priority, the asset details, and which site they're at. However, if they were calling and it was to do with a new starter, maybe we've got our own default set of new starter questions, or if it's a finance query, what does it relate to, what's the reference number, when was it raised, etc. You can create your own logic that sits behind here. So with all of that in mind, if we go back to the analyst view here and we look at our raise new, we can see how that progressive capture and business process logic works. So when Graham sat here and he's picking the phone up and he's speaking to the customer, the first thing again that he may have to do in a traditional system is actually decide which form do I want to open to record this information, and maybe I have to choose incident or service request. And maybe I've chosen an incident, but speaking to the customer I've suddenly realised halfway through that it's a service request. What do I have to do? Do I close that one down, open up the service request form and then ask them to repeat themselves, or do I log it and then convert it, or do I log it and then create a new ticket off the back of that? It's all very troublesome and unnecessary in here. So what we've done is said, well, if you know it's one of those request types, great, use that option. But if you're just speaking to the customer, use the raise new, get the information you need before you actually raise a request. So on here, I'm just going to use myself as the customer. So we'll see Steve has called. I can verify it's the right person. I can also at this point actually understand what Steve's calling about. Is he looking for an update to an existing ticket? If so, all that information is available to me here. I can drill down and give him the update that he needs. Or if it's not an update, what is he calling about? What services does Steve actually take from us? What he could be calling about that I might want to raise his issue against. And the options or the services that Steve subscribed to are presented here. And it may simply be that it might want to come under a generic desktop support service, or it may be actually that you've split out your services into a request catalogue so we can actually understand, okay, well, if Steve's looking for support against his Mac, is it because he's got issues after an OS upgrade or it's performing slow, or actually wants to get his Mac booked in to actually get a deep clean schedule? Or if he's working from home, is it because he's got VPN access issues or he's having problems with his mobile device? But on this occasion, I'm just going to follow the desktop support route. And we're going to see here, it gives me the opportunity then to capture the information that Steve wants to pass on. So I can say here, let's just use this one, a VPN issue, unable to connect from home, something like that. We might then at this point go, okay, well, we know it's Steve, we know what issues he's having the service it's against. Does this sound like a break fix issue, or is it a request for something? Is it a change? Now, logic would suggest that it's going to be an incident, but just for argument's sake, if I went down the change route, it's going to ask me any change-specific questions that I've built. However, if I go down the incident route, it's going to show you those questions that we saw in the progressive capture that we just built. So the first thing I might ask the analyst to do is categorize this accordingly. I might also ask them to prioritize it based on the information that Steve's elicited, and also then I may want to associate one or multiple assets that Steve's having this issue from. Is Steve working at his local office or is he working from home? Well, he's got a VPN issue, so it looks like he's working from home, so the site isn't relevant. And we'll go ahead and we'll complete that logging experience. So as we can see here, it's just an example of multiple questions branching depending on what Steve was calling about. So the real benefit here is that you should be able to sit anybody in front of Service Manager, bring them off the street, and the training or the overhead to get them up and running should be very, very short. We can see here that it's been logged, and I can move on and log another one, but I'm actually going to view this one and have a look at the details. And the reason for doing that is to introduce the concept of our business process that is supporting this ticket that we just raised. So we've created a desktop support process in the back end, and we've seen all the options and the maturity that's available to you, but we hide any of that complexity behind a graphical heads-up display, which we see on the request here. So an analyst or an end user at any point can see the stage that the ticket is in, what's been achieved so far and what's outstanding. So we can see that an email's been sent, it's been assigned to a team and a timer's running because the priority's been set. But what it's waiting for is an analyst in that team to take ownership. So what we've done through the business process is take the user in context to where they need to perform that next action. So I can come in here as Graham and I can pick up that request. On doing so, that checkpoint is achieved, we move on to the next stage, and in this example, it's created a task or an activity for the owner and a named individual, a user or group to actually look into this desktop issue. But before we do that, there's a lot of other manual options that you can do here. So one of which might be simply applying an update, which is going to be marked as customer facing for the self-service portal, so I can do that. The next thing I might want to do is actually take a screenshot, or the customer take a screenshot of the issue and add that to this request. So again, I can just do that quickly on here. All of those updates then appear in the timeline below in chronological order, all in line, so I can actually see and scroll down and see the updates that I'm interested in without actually having to open them all up, and I can filter those back to just show me updates that have been applied or assets have been attached, etc., etc. I've got great control over that. I've also got the option here to actually then go off and search external or internal knowledge to look for assistance that might help me resolve this issue. In this example, I might pass through the details of the summary description into YouTube, which is going to then go and find me any knowledge that might help my customer solve their own issue. So I'm not going to play the video on this occasion, but what I can do is if I found something that's useful, is I can come in here, I can pick that up, come back to my ticket, paste that in, and we can then share that video with the customer in line, and they can view that video via the self-service portal. Lots of other options. You can schedule callbacks, create activities, set up checklists of what you want the person to do on the callback. You can drag and drop attachments to the request and add those in. You can look for related tickets. So on here I might want to look for anything else that's VPN related, and I can see I get a whole multitude, 27 results. Maybe I want to filter that back again and just show me any open problems at the moment that might be of interest to me to help me solve my issue. So we'll search that, set that back. So again, I can see here there is one problem, and maybe I'll drill into that. Maybe there's a workaround, some information that can help me. I've got the option here to link this request to my request, and in doing so you'll see that a new section becomes visible. So we'll just go ahead and link this. So here we can now see a link to request section is exposed. We're very conscious about the real estate on the form, so we won't show areas that aren't populated, so the same is true for attachments and such like. But what you'll also notice at the top here is that because I've linked my instance to this problem and there is a potential workaround, that solution is presented to me. I can review that solution and choose to accept or not as to whether that will solve my issue. Other options you've got across the middle is sending out emails. You can change the customer. You can add connections. Maybe there's other customers that are interested in this or impacted by this issue, or you're raising this on behalf of someone. You can add all of that information in. You can add assets and resolve this as you see fit. The two other things I just want to comment on here before we move on from this area, and one of those is the ability to say, okay, well, I'm working on this ticket. I've done all I can do to resolve it. Now I can assign this away to another team or individual. I could keep ownership and create an activity for another individual or a role to actually assist and do something for me towards resolving this. What I could also do is actually drop in subject matter experts as I need them. So I can do here, I can add Rosemary in as a member. Now perhaps Rosemary isn't a member of my team. She doesn't have the rights to look at incidents or my team's incidents, but for this particular request I can elevate her rights so that she can come in and help and contribute. What I can also do then is push out a targeted communication for Rosemary to letting her know what assistance I need. Can you look at, excuse me, for this, please. And what that will then do, when I push that out, it's going to push out a notification to Rosemary, which she'll pick up either through her web client or on her mobile, letting her know the assistance that's needed. But the last thing I wanted to do here was come back to the fact that an activity was created by that business process. And by me completing this activity, a number of things are going to happen. One is that it's going to move the status into a resolved status. It's going to stop the timer, and it's also going to complete the process. So if I just go ahead in here and say that, yep, we've resolved the issue. Maybe it took us half an hour to do so. We'll mark that here. In doing so, as I mentioned, the ticket is marked as resolved, the timer stopped, the process completes, and in fact, a confirmation email has been sent to the customer just to let them know that's been wrapped up. What we can also do off the back of these, though, is maybe we need to raise a linked request, so we might want to raise a change off the back of here. And in doing so, it will promote up the information from the incident. We can use custom questions in progressive capture. This is just an example of some of the information that we may choose to use. We might categorize, we might add more assets, etc., etc. But ultimately, we get back into a change that we might be running here. So we'll go ahead and view that change. And looking at this, again, we've got the business process represented by a heads-up display. I won't be going through all of the steps here, but just a couple just to demonstrate a few additional points here. First is, again, as I've taken ownership of this particular request, I may also mark this change as being valid based on the information that I've looked at for the team to consider further. Off the back of that, maybe we have impact assessments that are passed out to multiple team members for all of their input to be sought. And I'm just going to go in here and mark this one as low in my occasion. Now, in doing so, I know in my example here that it's going to bypass the need for a backout plan, and it's going to go through to an approval stage. And we've got multiple approvers, and we can do things like unanimous approval or give each user a particular weighting to actually move this forward. But the reason for doing this is actually to introduce a concept of our boards here, which are a visual way to view all of your changes that are currently in flight against your change management process. So I'm just going to drill down into my change management board here. And we can see here that the board represents the life cycle stages of that particular process. So I can see those that are incoming, those that are currently being assessed, or those that are with CAB. And we can see here that the VPN issue that we were just working through, 184, has made its way through to the with CAB automatically based on me completing activities throughout that business process. So as a business owner, I've got a bird's eye view, a real-time view of where all of my changes are in flight at any given time. I can also drill down and have a look at just the changes that Graham is currently responsible for and the stages they're in, or equally Rosemary on this occasion, I can do that here. But boards don't just have to be used for change management, they could be used from an incident management perspective, and we could look at tickets that are going to breach today or in the next couple of hours or have already breached, or if we're doing procurement, then which requests have we received, been approved, are currently being sourced or being are in progress of being built, those that have been delivered. It's entirely up to you how those boards can be utilised. But if we go back to that particular change, we can see here that it's waiting for approval. Graham's a member of the team here, so I'm going to go ahead and accept that. The reason for doing it, again, is just to demonstrate that it will work its way through, it will wait for scheduling, but what it can also do, if we go back full circle, is it can actually push out the fact that that change has now made its way through, it has been approved, to the change management team to let them know through the workspace that there is changes ongoing or will be scheduled shortly for deployment. Okay. So at this point in looking at time, I'm just going to switch context and have a look at what do our end users see, what's their experience of using Service Manager. So the first observation or comment I will make about here is the self-service portal supports single sign-on. It's available in multiple languages, and it's customizable and brandable through the admin tool, no need for coding. Quick example of one of our customers and how they've branded their particular portal, and I'll just come back to the demo portal we're using here. So I'm just going to take the opportunity on this occasion to log in manually rather than single sign-on, and we'll just come in here as Steve, one of our end users. So when Steve logs in, what he's presented with are the services that he is subscribed to, and it's really important to understand at this point it doesn't just have to be IT services. Service Manager is set up deliberately to be used across the enterprise, and on here we can see that this is validated by the services that Steve consumes. Steve is the end user that might be supported by IT, might be supported by finance, facilities, office and such like, and all of their services can be presented to Steve and the ones that he subscribes to through this portal. So Steve can quite easily see the options if he's got any issues relating to his home working, any management services if he's a department head, or if we expand further, maybe he wants to order some new business cards or get some reprints of some documents. All of these can be requested through the request catalogue against the services that he's subscribed to. If we have a look at some of the options on here, we can also see that we've got a Mac support option, and again he can be guided through what issue he's having. But what we can also do is assist Steve before he actually needs to raise a request by pushing out FAQs against that service. What are the common things that we get asked about? Well, let's define those as FAQs and push them out. These can be simple text, or they could be embedded videos or content or links to external content for you to be able to go and allow them to self-help. But on here, say we can report things, slow performance, etc., etc. As I mentioned, it doesn't just have to be issues. It could be the request for a new mobile device. In doing so, it can guide them through what their preference is for the make and model they're interested in, what their minimum requirements are for the memory, the monthly data allowance, if it needs to be 4G enabled, why do they need the new phone, and obviously that will kick off any supporting business process that is needed. But what we've also got here is the ability to see which of my services I've got active requests against, which of my services are currently impacted, and what that particular issue is. And if I wanted to, I can drill down, look at the more information and favouritize any of those services I need to, so they'll be presented on my home screen. But if I drill down into my desktop support, again, we can look to raise new requests. But if we have a look at some of the existing ones that we've got available here, and we drill into one that we logged previously, the user's experience here can be the same as what the analyst sees, the heads-up display to show them where it is in the process. This particular one is in a resolve status, and as such, the user can provide feedback and rate the service that they've received. They can also, if they scroll down the timeline, see all of the updates that were provided, any video content or imagery or links that were provided, all in line very clearly and very easily in the system. But we'll come back up and we'll just have a look at quickly raising a new request. So in this one, I'm simply going to ask to get some help. Maybe we ask the user to categorize the issue they're experiencing with. So I might choose Word on here. Could be a printing issue. I'm able to print from Word, and then whatever questions you really want to ask on that. Is it just affecting you? How would you like to be contacted about this? And again, these are just example questions. Are you working at your usual site or from a different site? You can make those assessments. What machine, if any of it's relating to, is it a particular application it relates to? Maybe I'm on my Dell Latitude here, and if there's any supporting documents I want to upload. But again, it's just about asking enough questions to get the relevant information, which will allow us to route that request to the relevant support team to invoke the relevant process. And again, on here, we can see from Steve's perspective where that sits in the process, the fact it's being looked after a particular team, and they were just waiting for an analyst in that team to take up ownership. But Steve's got the option to see the questions, the information that he provided in here, as well as the ability to update, add attachments at any point as he needs to, or to actually comment on any of the posts that have already been raised in here. Okay, so we'll come back up, and that was really just an introduction to the service portal. I'll come out of here, and I just want to wrap up before I pass back to Abdi by having a look at some of the reporting analytic options. So if we remember what we've already seen through the analyst view, which is our views, our personal charts and our personal dashboards, this is really designed for the non-sort of technical guys, the analysts that don't want to understand how the database structure works or need to understand that, they can simply just use a clause builder to build the content that they need. Once we've got that, we've also then got an analytics piece that takes it up another notch, and we'll just log in here and take a look at that. So again, we'll go and have a look at Service Manager and our advanced analytics. So the platform provides you with a trending engine, which will allow you to define and build the measures to look at what you're interested in over definable periods of time. So these could be how many requests are we logging on a daily basis or resolving on a daily basis? What's our average time to resolve? We can set those measures up. We can set targets for those measures and when we want those measures to be taken, so say daily, weekly, monthly, and then we can see how we're performing against those measures and how we're trending through this information. So that's great in isolation, but what we can then do is actually wrap that up and consume that into widgets. And we can combine multiple measures on widgets. We can create traditional charts, target counters, etc. And again, we can then create dashboards to consume those widgets. Those dashboards can be shared with individuals, roles, and groups. And those dashboards can be manipulated and they can be wallboarded if need be. But what they could also be done is actually to daisy chain multiple dashboards together to have those transitioning through on maybe a 5-10 second interval on a wide screen. And I'll just take you through this approach just to give you a flavour for some of the widgets or the metrics that you can get out using the Service Manager tool. So I'll just let that go through one more. And to accompany these, obviously you've got traditional report and lists and such like, but this just gives you a flavour of some of the analytics that are available. Okay, so this was really just designed as an introduction to Service Manager. I'm just going to pass you back to Abdi now, just to give you some thoughts and comments on what we've seen.
Thanks, Steve. Just a quick reminder, obviously, if you have any questions, to post them into the GoToMeeting panel, and we'll come back and answer those in a moment. But just to wrap up here, just to revisit some of the challenges that we expressed at the beginning, let's have a look at how Hornbill makes Graham's life easier. Remember, Graham is using this in the context of an analyst. I'm sure you'd all agree that what Steve showed you there is a modern, powerful, intuitive ITSM tool that any of you could easily pick up and work with today. Furthermore, I think you'd probably concur that it's much easier to connect with subject experts and also to collaborate and resolve issues in real time using a tool that delivers both the service management and the collaborative capabilities in one, and hence our collaborative ITSM approach. Further still, as it says, language, location, all that sort of disappears into the background when you've got a platform that allows you to reach out and overcome those barriers. And most importantly, the fact that through continuous deployment, you're confident that the tool is always up to date. You never have to stop to do upgrades, and most importantly, you don't have to dedicate any resource, whether that's personnel, time, or indeed cost, to keeping your system up to date. That's just part of the service that we offer to you. So the system is always new, and you're getting the benefit of all the development and the knowledge that we're putting into that tool for you. As a service delivery manager, how does Hornbill make Sonia's life easy? So in context of expertise and sharing knowledge, obviously that becomes much simpler, but the result of that is better action, faster, more informed decision making and resolution of issues, which means ultimately better productivity for your organisation and a happier customer. Putting a team together means that you're not constrained by typical geographic boundaries or language boundaries. You can kind of pull that together because collaboration happens. You don't all have to be set across the desk. Most importantly, you're safe in knowledge that using the powerful business process engine that Steve showed you there, that you can orchestrate whatever complexities required into your business processes in order to make sure that they are working the way they need to, but most importantly, at the same time, not introducing complexity and confusion when the users come to interact with those processes, by simplifying, extrapolating out those layers so that users and end users get a view of what's happening with the process, but not necessarily have to understand the process end to end. Last but not least here, I think in regards to the reporting side of things, obviously the ability to communicate value, to provide that insight that we talked about earlier on around decision making, that becomes much easier with a dashboarding tool that we just showed you there, and I think you'll agree that that would make life much simpler, both for you creating the reports, but also for the team that have to review and take action based on those reports as a management team. So I guess in wrapping up, a couple of things really. What happens next? How much does it cost? And what do I do if I want to see more about Hornbill? Really is the kind of the crux of what we're going to cover here. So just because it sounds better in Italian, how much does it cost? Service Manager is very simply licensed, priced, if you like. It's designed for small teams and larger alike. It will scale to the enterprise as well. And it's a very simple per user per month pricing, and that's simply based around the number of analysts that are providing support to your end users. So for the end user community, it's a free subscription. For your analysts, there is a cost of £42.50 per user per month. And the good news is that scales with volume. So the more users you add, the cheaper that becomes, and that's each and every additional user that you add means that the price drops over time. And on top of that, we also offer you what we call our price for life guarantee, and in very simple terms, that's exactly what it is. The price you subscribe is the price that's fixed for the life of your contract. So what it basically means is that when you sign up to Hornbill service, whatever subscription price plan you sign up to is guaranteed for as long as you're a customer, which insulates you against any future price increases, and means that you're always informed and aware of what you're going to be paying for this service for as long as you're using that service. You don't have to consider the fact that each and every year the vendor has the option to increase the price. We've taken that out of the equation for you. So that's good. But a net result of that is you actually end up with automatic discounts over time through the effect of inflation, because over time the inflation has that effect on the price. So that's a guarantee for life. Over and above that, what next? Well, if you like what you've seen today, we'd certainly encourage you to have a quick conversation with us, either through your relationship manager or through one of our sales guys, and we'll be happy to take that conversation further. But in essence, what we'd like you to try and do, if you like what you see and you'd like to explore the option a bit further, is put us to the test. And that's not just the product, but the team. And in doing so, what we'll actually do is we'll give you the solution for free for 30 days as part of a free trial period. And during that free trial period, as I mentioned earlier on, we'll actually do a free implementation for you. So we're not going to wait for you to start paying as a customer to implement it. We'll actually implement it for free as part of that 30-day trial. We'll go through a whole switch-on process, which we'll talk about in a moment in terms of what's included. So what can you expect within that switch-on? Well, first and foremost, we'll dedicate a product specialist to you who will work with you to address some of the following areas. So integration with email, so you can get emails in and out of the system, fire off emails once you've logged a call, and equally log calls from emails. Integration to your corporate Active Directory or other LDAP system. We typically use SAML as the method of integration, but again, that's something that we'll do for you, get that all set up so you can see that all working in your environment. Assistance with importing users into your system, and likewise any other static data, whether that's asset data or other contact data that you might want to bring into the system, so that you can see that all up and running in your Hornbill instance. Furthermore, we'll also help with implementing and setting up any of the applications that you choose to deploy. You might choose to deploy the Document Manager app that Stephen showed you earlier on around knowledge, so we can help you to set that sort of thing up, as well as obviously looking at some of the reporting and the analytics that we showed you there at the end. Furthermore, we can basically advise, guide and help to transfer knowledge around customizing the solution and getting it to do what you need it to do. And last but not least, obviously help you with setting up business workflows and configuring the application to underpin those workflows for you. So the net result of those 30 days is that you should end up with a working system that you can then make a judgment call on as to whether that's suitable for your purposes. And at that point, all we ask for you at the end of that 30 days is that you give us a yes, I'm happy to accept the solution, in which case you can go on to subscribe and start to use the solution in anger. Or if you're not entirely satisfied or it doesn't meet your requirements, then you don't have to go ahead and you can reject the solution, and that's the end of it. No cost to you at any point from that point onwards, but we'll still have done all of that work to get things set up. Really, it's about giving you the ability to really see the solution before you have to make a decision as to actually spending money to subscribe to it. So thanks very much for your time today. I know we've had a few questions, so let's go ahead and see if we can address those, Steve.
Okay, yep. So there's one here. It's been a cloud-based solution.
Yeah.
Wondering where our Data centres are.
That comes up often.
It does.
So in terms of where our data centres are located, we have a number of choices for you as a customer. So if you choose to contract with us here in the EMEA region, then our data centres are based in Europe. In fact, they're mostly based in the UK, but for data jurisdiction purposes, let's say Europe. You can contract with us in the US and also in Asia Pac as well if required.
Okay. There's a question here, maybe one for me, regarding the assets and CIs.
Sure.
About importing data from tools like SCCM. Absolutely, there are various ways of getting asset data in. Here we do have a CSV import option, so you can do that yourself, or there is a scheduled import tool, executable, which you can run locally, point at your local tool, and then use our secure APIs to push that information into your instance to get that data in on a scheduled basis as well.
So we've got one more question here about training. So in regards to training, a lot of that's covered during the switch on package. During the 30 days, it's all about knowledge transfer. Our aim in that 30 days is to skill one or more of your people up to the point where you can take the solution and go forward with it. And beyond that, we offer a similar thing to Price for Life, but it's called Train for Life, where actually as and when potentially your expert on Hornbill either moves on or gets promoted, we'll actually take on the task of training your replacement up to ensure that you've always got that level of expertise inside of your organisation around the Hornbill solution to get the best out of it. Excellent. Well, I don't think we have any more questions, so let's draw today's session to a close. I'm going to hand back here to Ruth, but thanks very much for your time on my behalf.
Thank you, Abdi and Steve, for taking us through that presentation. I hope everyone found it useful. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or your relationship manager. Finally, thank you everyone for your time today. Goodbye.